Hi everyone, welcome to Global Affairs Quick Background. Today we're going to talk about the Arctic. Now, we all know that Arctic has been in the news due to climate change, due to the fact that globally rising temperatures are leading to ice melting in the area at an increasing rate. And while it is a super important environmental issue, it also leads to the second very important global development, specifically the fact that a number of countries in the world are starting to increasingly compete in that area. So today within this video we're gonna answer two questions. Number one is who is competing in the Arctic, and number two, what are they competing for? Let's go. So let's try to answer question number one. Who is competing in the Arctic? Well, originally it was 8 states that have territory within the Arctic Circle. You won't be surprised to hear that Canada is one of them, Russia, the US via Alaska, and a number of Nordic countries such as Sweden, Finland, Norway, Iceland, and Denmark via Greenland. However, the global competition does not stop there. A number of countries globally have recognized what a strategic and economic opportunity is opening up in front of them, and they wanted to get involved as well. And the biggest, most important example here is China. Obviously, China is quite far away from the Arctic and it couldn't possibly make any territorial claims there. So therefore, it pursued a different strategy. So originally it said, look guys, the Arctic is a common heritage of humankind, so therefore the whole international community should have a say when rules of the game are being discussed. Obviously, this claim has made countries that have territories in the Arctic Circle quite suspicious. Therefore, China had to change its strategy and start using a more soft power approach to start getting more and more influence in the region. For example, via investments, building icebreakers, doing scientific research, etc. So the bottom line here is that the competition for the Arctic strategic and economic opportunities has increased beyond the countries that are located right there. Which brings me to the second question. What are these countries competing for? In short, there are 3 reasons to compete there. Number 1, economic reasons. Number 2, security reasons. And number 3, strategic reasons. So let's take a look at each of them. Let's start with economic interests. The Arctic has a vast amount of untapped natural resources, whether it's oil, gas, rare earth materials, you name it. And these resources are becoming increasingly accessible due to melting ice and due to the fact that technologies that are used to get access to these resources are also becoming more and more advanced. But who has rights for these resources? Well, according to the international rules, a particular country has special rights for resources located within 200 nautical miles from its shore. This is a so-called country's exclusive economic zone. Now, the trick is that you can extend the zone if you submit evidence of your continental shelf stretching further under the water. And as a result, Canada, Russia, and Greenland all submitted evidence of their continental shelves, which seem to be overlapping. And as a result, right now, a special commission in the UN will have to decide which claims are actually accurate. Now let's move to security interests. Well, melting ice means that new sea routes are opening up. And one of these routes is alongside northern Russian border and is called the Northern Sea Route. And while it is a huge economic development that this route is opening up, because essentially this route will significantly cut travel time between China's market and European markets. It also has quite big security implications, because for the first time, Russian northern border is becoming exposed. So Russia wants to make sure that it fully regulates passage through this route, asking all foreign vehicles, whether it's commercial ships or warships, to ask for permission in advance to be granted access. Other countries, such as the US, are saying that this full control challenges international freedom of navigation rules. Now, finally, let's talk about strategic interests. Here, the biggest story is that the US is suspiciously monitoring increased investment activity of China in the Arctic, and in particular, an increasing strategic alignment between China and Russia. What does this strategic alignment look like in practice? Well, to develop the Northern Sea route, Russia needs infrastructure, expertise, and financing. And this is something that's really hard to get from the Western countries right now due to sanctions. China, in turn, is ready to help in that space because this type of support will legitimize China's presence in the Arctic. In order to counterbalance this China's and Russia's influence in the Arctic, the US wants, first of all, to increase its own presence in the area, and that's something that really hasn't been a strategic priority for recent US administrations. And secondly, increase cooperations with other members of the Arctic Council, which are predominantly NATO members. So let's do a quick recap. Who is competing in the Arctic and what are they competing for? So in terms of the countries competing in the Arctic, these originally have been 8 Arctic Council states, so the countries that have territory above the Arctic Circle, but increasingly more and more countries are getting involved, and the biggest and most important example here is China. So what are these countries competing for? Well, first and foremost, it's economic interests. Here a good example is Russia, Canada, and Greenland submitting competing continental shelf claims in order to have potentially access to natural resources that are located there. Then obviously it's security interests. Here for the first time Russia's northern border is quite exposed, so it wants to make sure that it has full control of who is accessing the Northern Sea route, something that the US challenges. And lastly, strategic interests. Here we're going back to this US-China competition, and the US is watching China quite suspiciously as it invests in Arctic countries and starts strategically cooperating with Russia. The US wants to counterbalance it by cooperating more with the other Arctic Council states. With that, thanks so much for watching, and until next time!